Good morning, everybody. I'm doing this as a premiere today, mainly because I'm feeling a bit rough. I've got a really bad sore throat, and so the mystery is starting today, and it's going to be an iris. These are all independently 12-inch blocks, but you could join them together at the end of the series to make a wall hanging that'll be 36 by 36. So as normal, I've prepared all my piece number ones onto the back, and I've put the pieces with them that start to attach all the pieces. So that's all the ones for the I block, and the H are all pinned together. So we're going to get started on piece A, which is just one of the dark purple and all the rest are background. So I'm going to go and sew them, and I will be back. Thank you. So I've got piece A that just needs trimming. I don't know how many of you saw the video I put up yesterday, but if you're not into doing foundation paper piecing, you can use a foundation paper piecing pattern as a normal pattern. You just need to make sure that where the intersection lines are when you cut the pattern apart, that you add 1/4 of an inch of your pieces both sides. Obviously this edge here doesn't need the 1/4 of an inch adding because it's already on, but it is easy enough to do, and if you check out yesterday's video, that will show you how to do that. So I've trimmed up piece A, that's going to go on one side. I'm going to prepare all the other pieces in exactly the same way. I've already started, as I say, I put the first piece on using my Elmer glue stick, and piece B has just got two other colours to add to it, the green and a dark purple. Okay, so I'm going to get that done. Now, when placing piece B, because it's at an angle, piece B is at an angle, when you fold it down, what you need to do is you need to make sure that when you place your piece on it, that it covers the whole of your fabric at the back. So I'm not actually laying it on that line because that's not going to, the piece isn't going to fit, but I'm still going to sew across that bit and then trim that off. So as you can see, there's piece B, and it fits inside the allowance of my fabric, and as you can see, that bit's hanging over. That will get trimmed off. So the same goes for the green. You need to make sure that you've got enough to cover your piece of pattern, so that when you open it out, it should fit within the parameter of the edge, which mine does just at that end there, you can see. So there's piece B, all done. Now piece C again, it's just one colour and the rest are background. You have got a tiny little bit of white in there. It's just a 1-inch square of fabric that'll cover that little gap. So we're going to go sew them and we'll come back. Okay, so piece 2 on piece C. Again, when you lay it out, this, to make sure that it covers this area here, you can just see I need to sew it along there, so this bit of white will get cut off. So there you see it's fitted. I never cut off that piece until I've made sure that it does fit, in case I have to adjust it, but that fits fine. So I'm going to cut that bit off and then add the next piece. So that's piece C. Let's move on to piece D. So there's piece D. That's the only real funny angle, and as again, if you make sure when you place your pieces on that your fabric covers, you'll be fine. So piece E, just again make sure when you fold your paper pack that your fabric covers the area that you need to do, and then sew along the line and trim it down. So there's piece E finished. Now again, piece F, I've already got the purple on. When you place your fabric, you need to make sure that you've got it so that it covers all of your pattern before you sew. So this end here is going to be chopped off. You've got plenty of fabric to make sure that you've got enough to be able to make it fit. So there is piece F. Now piece G has the most pieces on it, so you're just going to take it one piece at a time. Okay, so here's your first piece that's already prepared and stuck on with the Elmer glue stick. Piece 2 is yellow, which is fitting in that gap there. So when you place your piece on, right, put your fabric right sides together, fold your paper down and make sure that your fabric fits in that gap. Now, as you can see at the moment mine doesn't, so I need to adjust it. Just bear with me. So what I've done is I've turned my fabric at an angle to make sure that it fits that bit there. You can just see where the two pieces, where the folded line is. Again, I've got this bit over here which I can chop off afterwards. So we're going to sew that. So as you can see, that piece covers all of that number 2. So I'm just going to trim it down to the 1/4 inch, ready to add piece 3. Now the third piece is the light purple, and that's quite easy because it will just cover and fit because the piece is plenty big enough. So we're going to sew that one. That's piece 3 in. We're going to trim it down because piece 4 is just a small piece of the darker purple, and then once we've trimmed it down we'll add that piece. And as you can see, that piece is plenty big enough to cover that little gap. Piece 5 is also a piece of the dark purple, which as you can see is plenty big enough. There's the line here, so you can see it's plenty big enough to cover the piece that you need to do. So piece 6 is yellow again. Sorry. And as you can see, when I fold it back, it's plenty big enough to cover the area, because the area is there and it comes down quite a way, so it's plenty big enough to get that one sewn on. So next piece is dark purple again. So there's your paper. As you can see, if you can just see where the point comes. I usually put my finger near the point and my thumb on the opposite side and just check that my fabric is big enough, and it is. 2 more pieces to add, 8 and 9. They're both background pieces. It really doesn't matter which one you put on first, but I am going to keep it in order, so my first one to go on is 8. Again, the piece is plenty big enough. I always try and make sure I'll give you plenty of fabric in the description to make it fit. That needs to, the patterns is well within the edge, because the pattern edge is here, look. So it is, well, this bit's just extra bit of paper, so my fabric is covering it, even though it looks as though it isn't. So with piece 9, just make sure that you scoot your background fabric over enough so that you've got it covered, and then sew that line. So there we go, piece G. I have just put a couple of pins in at either end to hold it while I trim it down. So there's piece G all trimmed. We've got 3 more pieces to do, and then we can start and put it together. So piece H, first piece we're going to add is the green on that side, and it should be plenty big enough, your piece, to just sew straight without having to worry about any extra angles. Okay, so the piece 3 is the light coloured purple. Again, you're going to have to make sure you get your angles right. So when you fold your paper back, make sure that your fabric covers all of this area here. You're going to have that extra bit at the top, cut it off afterwards, don't worry about it, and then you're going to sew down your seam. Once again, before you cut it off, make sure that your pieces fit, which it does, and then you can trim off that extra bit at the top. Piece 4 is green. Again, your piece is plenty big enough, so it should just fit without having to worry too much about your angles, because it's on a straight edge. So just line it up and sew. So your final piece on piece H is background white, and again you should have plenty there to cover your piece. So there's piece H, all trimmed, ready. So we've just got 2 more pieces left. Piece I, again, has a few pieces, and some are at funny angles, but we can master that one by one. So the first piece on it is yellow, and again, once you fold your paper down, you can see the line where you can just make out where the number 2 comes here. Just make sure that it covers with your fabric. It doesn't matter about this bit, we can chop it off after, as I've said. Just stitch along there, fold your piece back, give it a good press, and then we'll move on. Right, now this side where it attaches to piece 3 is fine, but this side where it attaches to piece 4 is actually a little bit skimpy on this edge, but I'm not too worried because it will get caught into the seam, and when it's quilted no one's going to know. So we're going to add piece 3. So I've gone ahead and added piece 3 and piece 4. Now let me show you on this piece 4. This is really close to the stitch line, but it's still secure and it's still fixed in, so that will be fine, because when it's quilted over it'll hold it in place, so I'm not too worried. And again, I've added piece 5, and as you can see it's a bit skimpy here, but it is fixed in, it's not going anywhere, so I'm not worried. So piece 6 is background, which I've gone ahead and added and trimmed, so that's piece I finished. So we've just got 1 more piece to do, and then we can join it together, and that is piece J, which is just background piece, which is piece 1, and your piece 2 is your green, which again is just straightforward, adding it in, just making sure that your fabric covers to your point where your end of your leaf is. So as long as you've got enough fabric to cover, you'll be fine. So there's piece J. Now we're going to get the board out and lay it out, ready to sew together. So I've got a board that I've covered in some felt, which helps the pieces stick to it. It actually needs re-sticking down the felt, but it still works. And I've got my layout so that I know which pieces go where. So I'm going to lay it out and then come back. So here are my pieces laid out. I'm going to join these two together, those two together, these two together, these two and these two. Then once they're joined together, we can come back and we can start and put the others onto where they've got to go. Okay, so we've joined I to H, we've joined B to G, we've joined C to D, and we've joined A to F. Now you have left J and E, but you need to join J to the top of I before the HI, before you join in the others. Okay, so we'll join H to the top, J to the top of HI, which is that one, onto there. You then need to join E to FA before you join any others. You can now join A, E and F to H, I and J on there. So that's half of your iris joined together. You're now going to take CD and join it to GB. Shove your pieces out of the way. So there's your pieces, and you're going to join them along that angle there. You now just have one seam left, which is to join the two halves together. Place them right sides together, 1/4 inch seam as we normally do, and sew all the way down this side. So there's the finished block. At the moment it measures 12.5 by 10. I want them to be 12.5 so that they're a finished 12-inch block, so I'm going to add a 1.5 inch strip to each side. So there's my finished block. Once again, really sorry that this has been a preview, but sorry, a premiere, but I can feel my throat is really going now. So hope you all have a good weekend, and I'll hopefully speak to you all next week. Thank you, bye.